Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Semper. I'm a branding specialist and media personality on a mission to make sustainability irresistible. Today, I'm joined by and with Eddie Tony. Eddie Tony has a really interesting business and mission in life. Today, we have a dual mission. With this episode is to introduce plant medicine to the world, not as something mysterious or taboo, but as something trendy, grounded, and deeply cool. Think less woo and more whoa. And I can speak from experience. We're aiming to open people's minds and hearts by showing how plant medicine can boost and unlock and unleash creativity, better connection with your mind and within yourself, with your family and your friends. It's great for healing and so much more. Hello, Eddie.
Hello, Tanya.
So let's get right into it. There's lots of talk, nowadays regarding plant medicine. So what is all the buzz about? What is plant medicine?
Mm. So, to be completely honest,
Always.
I don't know too much about what's going on right now. I try to stay in my own little bubble.
Yeah.
I've been involved in psychedelics for over a decade, and I know there's even a Netflix documentary out by Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind. I haven't even watched that.
Mm,
A lot of the experience that I have gone through has been through doing the work, through working with the medicine in the jungle as well. That's why I brought the jungle to me here. I'll
love
go
it.
into that story back in the day, and it's becoming more mainstream, and I think that's great. It's more accessible to many people, but at the same time, with that said, it can be abused or used in a way that's
Mm,
not beneficial for the person because, like anything else, a knife, an instrument, plant medicine, it's just a tool. It's how you use that tool, which is going to yield what type of benefits or dangers that we get from it.
mm. So I was introduced to plant medicine a few years ago, actually a little over 2 years now. And I was introduced to this format. Essentially, it was a 5-day retreat. I was attending as media, and I was there for 5 days, as I mentioned. And it was just like building blocks, setting intention. There was meditation, of course, breath work, which I know you are a master at. And of course, closer to the end, there was a ceremony with cannabis. And I had never experienced cannabis in this way. Actually, I don't, I'm not a user of drugs. Cannabis has always had a really bad effect on me. I've always, I would call it, bad trip to some degree whenever I had tried it many years ago. And I would just get really stuck in my thoughts and I would become really paranoid. I really did not like the experience. I tried it within a ceremonial setting. There was a shaman, there was, a different format, there was the breath work, there was the meditation, there was an attention sitting, and it was ceremonial essentially. And I went through like a metamorphosis and I healed, my inner child. And, more on that in a separate episode. Then I was introduced to your format and I was blown away. I've tried the cacao experience, which I had no idea that you can connect with your higher self in that capacity with cacao, pure chocolate. Then I experienced at your facility, your beautiful location that is filled with love and such a peaceful setting and safe space. Of course, with Sophia, which we'll learn about in just a moment. And I journeyed with psilocybin, and that was mind blowing. So when we talk about plant medicine, you talked about misusing it. What I've come to realize, and I'd love your take on this, is that individuals think of plant and not plant medicine, but they think of common drugs. They'll talk about cannabis and mushroom, and they'll talk about other substances, right? And they'll misuse it. From what I've learned now, they'll use it for recreation. And what you teach is going like it's like introspection, right? You go inwards. So with the eye mask, you're internalizing, right? You're using your third eye to see things. So, can you expand on that a little bit based on what I just shared?
Absolutely. And I've used it in both ways, recreational in the past. I feel like many of us have, in my younger
Mm,
years, and also in a sacred ceremonial fashion. And I'll explain the difference as well.
okay.
And with the ceremonial, whether it's working with cannabis or psilocybin or other plant medicines, the intention is always to go inward.
Mm,
So, of course, when we take these compounds, it can yield psychedelic effects. Things could be moving around, perceptions altered. But when we take away this sense of sight, it allows a deeper access to our energetic body, to our physical body internally, into thoughts and memories. And that's where the value lies. Because
mm,
what's really happening when we work with psilocybin is it is dampening the amygdala. So, amygdala is our fear response. Our hippocampus stores all of our memories and emotions. And our default mode network is the way how we think from day to day, just our regular way of thinking. So,
mm,
all of these systems are dampened so that we gain access to our subconscious, so that we gain access to past traumas, to
mhm,
energies that have not been processed from childhood, from teenage years, and allows for a processing to happen. So when that processing happens, then that energy dissipates. It creates more space within ourselves that we can draw in new intentions, new ways of thinking and being, and allows for enhanced neuroplasticity. So just a remolding of the brain.
mhm,
When we do it recreationally, sometimes we do it for fun. People do it at festivals, and I don't want to say anything. It's not completely wrong.
mhm,
However, we are losing out on a lot of the benefits. So, for example, if someone encounters something challenging when they're doing it recreationally, they may start to distract themselves
mhm,
or, yeah, pretty much distract themselves. So, uh, in that case, we're not doing some deep healing work. We're just, going through the psychedelic feelings that can be,
mhm,
there could be highs and lows, and it could be fun as well. But this is a
mhm,
completely different intention where we want to connect deeper with the discomforts,
mhm.
to build a relationship with the discomforts so that they don't have a strong hold on us, like a strong grip on us.
So my family is aware that I've been to these types of experiences, and they don't, they definitely think I'm a little bit of a weirdo slash hippie, my husband included. And he dropped me off, to your facility essentially the last time, and he was just like, I don't get this. So you're gonna spend your Saturday while we're gardening and getting things done. You're just gonna be laying there in the room with a bunch of strangers, like doing drugs. And I was just, it's so interesting and it's fascinating that there are so many individuals that don't get it, right? And it's not their fault because they might be scared without even realizing that they're scared about doing it, which is why they call it, taboo or they call it hippie or what have you. They just don't understand. So I wanted to just mention, well, two things. One of which I wanted to just put the focus for a second on just confirming and making everyone aware that when you're internalizing, you're going inwards instead of using it for recreation, where you're opening your eyes and you're looking around. The setting is you're going, of course, you have beautiful music playing. Of course, there's like that intention setting and the breath work, but you're using your eye mask and you're laying there for 6 hours at a time. And you go through, and I'm speaking from experience, you go through so many aspects where the plant is literally just showing you things that you need to see that were hidden in your subconscious, like you said, Eddie. And it's healing you at such a fast pace, but it is actually the most uncomfortable thing I've ever experienced and the hardest thing I've ever experienced. I would almost say that it's like a metamorphosis where you're going through changes so quickly. And of course, the difference, the experience will be different for everybody, but I would almost equate it to giving birth because like I'm scared and how would I say like uncomfortable throughout the process, but at the end of all of it and a few days afterwards, I'm like healed and I have this love and respect for nature to a whole other level and for people on a whole other level and the clarity and so on and so forth. So can you speak about that a little bit? Like why does everyone experiencing why are they experiencing something different? And then what are they communicating with plant medicine? What is that energy or what have you? Please expand.
Sure. Everyone has a different perspective, and um, what I've come to land upon now is that I'm actually speaking to my subconscious mind and also my superconscious mind. My superconscious mind is the part of me that's connected to everything and everyone. My subconscious is the parts of me that I'm unaware of.
Mm,
So they call this medicine a non-specific amplifier. So whatever is lingering below the surface will come up to the surface for you to see, for you to witness, for you to move through. And sometimes people make connections to spirit guides, to animal guides, to
Hmm.
ancestors, because that's how their mind is making sense of the energy, because our minds always want to make sense of what's happening, so they'll attach anything that's familiar,
Hmm.
whether it be aliens. It could be aliens as well, it can be
Yeah.
anything. If we grew up in a religious setting, it could be like the devil and angels, or just simply energy. And so whatever we grew up with, whatever conditioning that we have that represents an underlying energy, it'll make that connection because the mind's trying to understand it. So for
Mm.
many people, they'll connect to different thoughts, emotions, wisdom, and it could be connected to angels or guides,
Hmm.
or animals. But the underlying energy of what's going on is either love or fear or
Hmm.
anger or grief or sadness or whatever it is. So some people, when they are communicating, they say they're communicating with the medicine or their guides. I sometimes use that language, but I feel like because I have a deeper connection with my super consciousness, meaning that I feel that I am a part of everything, that everything runs through me, spirit runs through me. So if I'm
Mm.
connecting to an angel, I don't see that angel as something outside of me, but a frequency within me. If I'm speaking to the devil, I don't see it as, an entity outside of me. I see it as like maybe an unintegrated shadow part within myself that's holding on to a lot of anger or fear. And and when I communicate it and I invite it within myself, it becomes more whole. It doesn't have that grip on me. So that's
Mm.
the way I communicate to my inner world now. I see everything as a part of me, even animals as well. If there's a spirit animal that comes through, I embody the essence of that spirit animal, and I take in the energy and see what I can learn from it. But I see it more as I'm communicating to my inner world, and my inner world is connected to everything. Because in reality, if you really zoom out to space, we look down on our home on Earth, it's just one globe.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
even our bodies as well. Like we're full form from this distance, but if you put us under a microscope, we're just, little individual cells. So there's a paradox that yes, we are individual cells, we are separate, but we're also one as well. So spirituality, there's a lot of paradoxes, there's multiple truths, and so the way I communicate to the medicine is I'm communicating to my inner self. That's how I describe it.
I
And with
noticed.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. You go ahead.
Hmm. And with family members and with people, the outside world, uh, I've stopped trying to convince people.
Mm.
I've stopped, like, even my parents, they haven't experienced it, but I feel like they've progressed a lot on their healing journey just because their interaction with me has been quite
Mm.
different. So now I believe it's Mahatma Gandhi that said this, like, be the change. So the things that we experience, if we experienced being enveloped in love, allow that love to radiate in all ways, in every way, in the people that we communicate with. And they're going to recognize, they're going to feel a different aura within us. And because of emotional contagion, where we like to mirror each other. If we can hold that vibration, people will mirror that back to us. And in doing so, they'll also connect to that frequency even more. And that's how we make that ripple effect in our families and our friends. And some people don't even need to work with the medicine
Mhm.
to progress on their journey. Um, but the people that come to me, it's very organic. It's word of mouth. I don't do I don't do any like paid advertising. I just
Mhm.
put out my dates and that's it. Uh, I believe we spoke about, that the medicine calls you. I believe, yes, the medicine calls you, but it's really when someone speaks about it and then
Mhm.
they see the progression, let's say, for example, you or another person over the years, and they witness, oh, Tanya's her aura is different. She just
Mhm.
carries herself a little bit differently. She's less reactive. She's more lovingly responsive.
Mhm.
And when they witness this new radiance within us, then they become more curious. Then the
Yeah.
medicine starts to talk to them because they know that you've worked with it. So that's really how my work really spreads
Mhm.
is through the embodiment, through the integration practices as well, because we know what we felt in the journey. How can we build a compounding effect so that this feeling can radiate continuously throughout our lives so that the people around us can feel the difference?
So What I've noticed as well during ceremony and just the setting that you create in your space is there's a lot of indigenous tools and instruments, and even the music has a little bit of indigenous, singers, I believe. So is plant medicine and everything that you've created, the format based on indigenous principles and teachings?
So I've worked with many indigenous practices. So my origins of working in a professional setting with plant medicine was actually in Peru,
Mm,
outside of Iquitos, with a tribe. The main tribe was the Shipipo tribe, and they worked with plant medicine ayahuasca.
yeah.
And I worked with several shamans. I was a lead facilitator there, and I led two retreats for 6 months, so 12 retreats total.
Wow.
So that was my logistical training. I didn't have any of the spiritual, energetic mentorship. It was just more
Mm,
so holding a safe space, helping people process their emotions by just being present with them. And the shamans did their work.
hmm
So I draw a little bit from that lineage, but very little. So a lot of the music that I use have been I've it's been impacted. I'm sorry. A lot of the music that I use and the instruments that I've drawn in, if I've sat in another circle or I went to a sound journey, I've traveled all over Southeast Asia, so I've experienced several modalities. The ones that really have made an impact on me and really cracked my heart open, uh, I've kept with me.
mm,
So it's a combination of um, different styles of music, of facilitation, of communication to the spirit world or parts of myself
hmm
that I've kind of gathered from my world travel because I did take a 2.5 year sabbatical.
No.
So, for example, I use a lot of mantras in my practice that stems from the Hindu and Buddhism lineage. I did a lot of chanting when I was in Thailand and Bali. So I've taken that into my practice because it's authentic to me.
hmm
A lot of the music, the ethereal music, I actually used to listen to that entire set when my brother passed to help me move through grief.
mm
That type of music, the style they use near the ending of this ceremony, that's not used in any other ceremony I've ever sat with. It's just
hmm
that I had a chapter in my life where it impacted me to help me move through so much grief, so it's authentic to me, so I bring it to my practice. So it's quite unique.
mm
I haven't experienced what I serve and how I serve
hmm
medicine anywhere else because it's not anywhere else because it's
mm
it's it's really flowing through me. I try to connect to my inner voice and to the energetics of my body and filter it through as opposed to believing what the outside world is telling me because I,
mm
I I feel like that's why I've developed a practice that's grown so organically because it's come so organically through me.
hmm I've noticed that when I was sitting again within your studio and going through all of the, the motions essentially during the last ceremony, I noticed that like there's a lot of, I believe there was 11 individuals, including myself, and everyone was going through like their metamorphosis and their awakening or what have you, right? They're being taught certain things and they're going through it. I noticed that sometimes there are individuals who are going through like some difficulty, and then you're using certain tools, again, indigenous tools, I believe so. Please, correct me if I'm wrong, but then you're using them like strategically to help individuals get through whatever they're going through in that specific time period. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I have a few here actually. I have my
Let's see
feather.
it. Go get it. Go get
Okay.
it.
Okay. This is my main tool
hmm
right here. So when I owned a gym in London, Ontario, it was a unique gym because after the workouts, I would always get people to go into meditation because I had a bit of a meditation background as well,
Nice.
just through my upbringing. And then I would smudge the space with either Palo Santo, or sage, and I didn't have like a feathery tool. And I had two clients, they were an indigenous brother and sister, Nathan and Alyssa. They gifted me this feather. So I've been using this feather
Mm.
for 13 or 14 years.
Wow.
And it just landed in my lap. It was gifted by them,
Mhm.
and it's lasted over a decade. And no one taught me how to use it. I
Mhm.
go into communication with the spirit of the feathers, of the goose, and I
Mhm.
sit with it and I hold it. I communicate it in my own unique way. I listen to music and I see what flows through. And really, I allow my default mode network, my regular way of thinking, to shut off, and I allow the energy of this uh, tool
Mhm.
to work me, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So I'm in deep connection with the tools that I use, and I go into deep connection and communication with them as well. So yes, once upon a time I did have some teachers. I've done a lot of teachings,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until one of my spiritual teachers gifted me a connection to a spirit guide named Arnon. Arnon was a disciple of Buddha.
Mm.
So Arnon learned from Buddha. So what I would do in my meditations, I would connect to the spirit of Arnon and ask questions and see what information would come through.
Mm.
Whether I'm making a direct connection to Arnon himself or Arnon is a part of me and I'm connecting to that specific part of me, it doesn't really matter because the answers always drop in. And that's how
Mm.
I go into communication with my inner world and extract, um, tools and gifts and ways of doing things the way I do things is through communication to some of these guides. For example, here, Kuan Yin is another energy that I work with. She is a Buddha and she's a goddess of compassion. And anytime in the past when I was working with people and I would get activated emotionally, I would
Mhm.
take full responsibility and connect to the goddess of compassion to develop more compassion for myself. And that takes time out of my day to silence and to go inward and connect to this energy, the letters of the entire word, the
Mhm.
goddess that represents compassion, and see what I can learn from it. And what I've found is the more that I can connect deeper into this energy, the more it can radiate within myself. And I
Mhm.
have these sacred objects as reminders because every time I look at, my Om Mani Padme Hum mantra or my Kuan Yin, it reminds me compassion for myself first and foremost, and to everybody that I serve. That it's become automatic. It's become a part of me, and that's how I work with sacred tools and different lineages. For example, my dragon as well. The dragon represents the five elements, and I have it right on my altar. It's, forefront, a center, and that reminds me to master the elements. So emotions is water. The earth plane is the material world. Our spirit is fire, and then air is the mental world. The more that we can master all of our elements, the more that we can access our inner gifts.
Mhm.
So in a ceremony, I will call in one of those elements to take over my energy and I become that energy. So if I need grounding, so if the space is chaotic and people are moving through heavy emotions and I need grounding, I will call upon Earth Spirit to
Mhm.
be within me, to radiate within me, and I'll hold that energy. I'll get out of my own way. So Eddie's exited just to the side, and I allow the energy of Earth to take over, to breathe that grounding force, the oak tree, the earth, the soil. So this is how I work with energy. That's why, I don't do a lot of courses. I don't read a lot of things. I just really connect
Mhm.
inward to the energetics of whatever I'm working with.
I feel like those that are watching right now, they're just like, what? It's like this whole other world, right? Well, what
Yeah.
I can definitely say is, I knew a little bit about indigenous practices and all that stuff, but what I do know now more than ever is I respect all of their tradition and their ways, and they have profound respect towards nature and animals and even their methods, when it comes to where they get their food sources. And It's so fascinating. So I've been listening to your playlist and I've just really it's like my heart just radiates and it completely opened up in a way that I didn't know was possible. Um, so can you explain and describe like what is the process? Like if you had to describe, because I've experienced it, I could easily speak to it. But if you were to describe the process, so from the plant medicine ceremony that you create, so what's the flow of it?
Yeah. So the ceremony begins when someone signs up because their subconscious knows, okay, I'm going to be moving through something big. So then things start to come up. And that's why I also give a workbook as well to help people prepare because the
Hmm.
preparation is just as important because it gets people just to slow down a little bit and connect to what it is that they want to work through within themselves. And a lot of times we already have the answers, and it's just a matter of taking that pause.
Hmm.
Physically, just to clean up the diet, because when we go into a ceremony, it's bringing a lot of debris up,
Hmm.
energetic debris, and
Yeah.
energy affects our bodies as well. It'll bog us down. So we want to make sure that our pathways are moving beautifully, so that when we do release, things can flow through the physical body.
Hmm.
And then also just the mental preparation. Um, the biggest thing that people fear is going into the state and losing complete control.
Hmm.
So that's why leaning into the workbook and getting familiar with the tools and the breath and the visualization, it's going to help people to soften in and to surrender to the
Hmm.
experience. Um, and we go through as a group, the day before, on the day of, breathing techniques to down regulate into the nose, letting go through the mouth, into the nose, out through the nose,
Hmm.
visualizing the mycelium roots going into our nervous system and cleaning and clearing, enhancing and amplifying the feeling of gratitude. Like, thank you to the medicine, thank you to the elements, to Mother Earth for her medicine, her gifts. All these little tools add up and make such a big difference
Hmm.
to help support someone moving through the big fear responses, because that's all it is. It's just all of our trauma is trapped in because we were once upon a time like afraid, so we we,
Hmm.
we held on to it, and it's challenging for people to go back into some of those memories because they hurt, and they hurt so much that we tend to suppress them, or we
Hmm.
backlog it. But
Yeah.
in order to get into our hearts, get into that um, inner peace, inner freedom, we have to go through those emotions. And this is what the medicine allows us to do. And not just the medicine alone, but being in the space that helps you feel supported, being with facilitators that are grounding and knowledgeable and can help someone move through some of the big energies and releases.
So I want to backtrack a second because like, you know your format really well, but I just want to put some emphasis on like your structure. So when I signed up, I had to essentially prepare my body where you're eating clean as possible. You're cutting out alcohol, you're cutting out caffeine, you're cutting out sugars, processed foods, all you name it. This is how people should eat every single day, right? So essentially, you're returning to nature, so preparing the body. So there's a lot of that. I found it difficult to cut out caffeine, so I just diminished. But so there was that, of course. There was the mental preparation, and I love that you had a pre-call, right? So it's pre-ceremony call, set intention, do some breath work, da 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 da. Then the day of course, we bring our eye mask. We bring a journal for our intention setting, a token of some kind to help us through, help ground us, like something symbolic. And I believe, and I think that was water. And then essentially we were in a group, and correct, like you tell me if I'm missing anything, but we were in a group among all other individuals. We shared what our intentions are going to be. And then of course we drank the plant medicine. And then we just laid back and then went
Yeah,
into our zone. Did I get it right? Did I miss
you
anything?
did. I want to emphasize the opening circle, which is really important
Yes.
as well, especially in a group setting when each person shares where they're at, some of the challenges they're moving through, their intentions and where they want to be.
Mhm.
It develops a shared humanity. We become more connected to each other. We can support each other just by witnessing each other's shares. So that opening circle is really important because we are essentially supporting each other, even though it's a very individual solo journey. We're doing it as a group, and there's some
Mhm.
comfort and safety doing it as a group as well, because we
Mhm.
feel like, oh, we're not alone.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, I do have a lot of private clients as well, but in a group setting, there's that extra element of, oh, we're going into the jungles, the jungles
Together.
within together,
Yeah.
and we're side by side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
then
beautiful.
after that opening circle, we drink and then we go under the eye mask.
Hmm.
A lot of
Hmm.
instrumentals. Instrumentals are important because it helps us to evoke and overlay our stories on top of it. Sporadically spread out, there are some really supportive, beautiful vocals that really help with just, you know, gaining some new insight. And it's also very grounding as well when you hear the vocals and my voice and my co-facilitator's voice. And then,
Hmm.
and depending on who I'm working with, you know, we'll have to have different musicians, vocalists come in just to
Hmm.
add a bit of fun and flair. And I call it medicine music. So a lot of the music that we play or that we share, my co-facilitator Audra, she wrote a lot of her own songs,
Hmm.
have been developed, you know, post ceremony where she's connected with her inner voice and it birthed a beautiful song. So we'd love to share that with the group as well. And then
Hmm.
after the ceremony, then we go back into our circle. Everyone has um, some food just to ground, and then we also do that closing circle where everybody shares a little bit about their experience, and then we'll do another integration call afterwards as well as a
Hmm.
group to see where we're at in a few days. And then if anyone ever needed or wanted support afterwards, they can book a one-on-one session with me. And
Hmm.
the great thing is, I have a book coming out that shares my life story, but in a very relatable way, and lots of tips and tools and golden nuggets for the reader, especially after a psychedelic journey. So that's going to be available very soon.
So one thing that really stood out among so many other things, I love the format. So with Audra there and with you, and you're both, you know, doing your thing. At one point, you were using sound bowls. She was singing, and she had the harp. And then I looked at Sophia, which is your gorgeous plant wall. Totally obsessed. You have the real thing, and I have the backdrop that's virtual. But that it like it was so beautiful. Like I could see the Sophia breathing because the leaves were moving. The window was open just a little, just enough for the wind to kind of like seep through. Audra, her skin was like translucent. It was just beautiful. She looked like an angel. And I'm just looking at this. I'm like, wow, this is like the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Now I listen to I listen to the playlist and I listen to it. Like I'm proudly listening to it. I'm driving the car. Like now that it's nice out, I'm driving in my vehicle and I have the windows down and I'm listening to this music and people must think I'm like an absolute weirdo because some of the music, like let's just put it this way, I'm not even allowed to play it at home. My husband, for some reason, is not a fan. I don't know why, but to me, it was the most like it's my heart, it's everything. It brings me back, transports me back to the moment and of like my metamorphosis at your facility. And it was just, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, bringing this to the world. And I've told you this before. I said, you need to replicate yourself, find a way, use AI tools to just create more Eddie Tonys in the world because you're just one person. Like you need to the world needs you. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to solve this issue that we're experiencing right now?
Uh,
You can't take a break.
Yeah, so that'll happen organically. The book's really gonna help. So when people can access me directly, I think the book's gonna be even more in depth because it really shares all the nooks and crannies of my personal story, what I've seen with clients, and like my absolute best tools. But as far as the guidance, the ceremony itself,
Mhm.
we'll see how that unfolds. Yeah, I'm in no rush. Uh, I've always, I used to be like deep into business. Like I had a restaurant and a nightclub, and it was
And a gym.
my entire life, and it actually burnt me out. So
Mm.
I never want to get back into that. I feel like I have a really nice balance of work, of
Uh-huh.
play, of social, because I also want to embody the wisdom. And part of the wisdom of this work is having space to just be with myself, to be
Yeah.
in connection with my family, my friends. So if I just keep working, because even if I have support, I still have to manage people, and
Hmm.
I'm in a sweet spot right now.
Yeah.
And as more technologies come, and as I naturally grow, like things
Hmm.
will unfold for me, I know for
Yeah.
sure. But the important thing for me is just to be really present with where I'm at now and just keep doing what I'm doing, and things will unfold. I keep saying unfold
Hmm.
because it really just does. When it unfolds, I step into it
Yeah.
when it feels really good. Yeah,
Well,
I'm not one to like really force something.
no, and I want to just highlight for a second what you mentioned and how we talk about like mycelium, and how the mushroom network is all interconnected. Well, what I've learned through plant medicine is how everything in my life is interconnected and it's all building blocks, and there are absolutely no coincidences. The other day, you said to me, like, what was making you so emotional during your plant ceremony? And it was like, I was just so grateful for the knowing that I like the knowledge I have now and the certainty I have within myself and my life and my purpose and in nature and everything being connected. So I just want to highlight something that you said. You said that in the past you had a gym, of course, you had a restaurant, you had a nightclub. These experiences all contribute to your facility and what you're offering today. You know how to concoct this delicious drink. I'd argue maybe it's not so delicious, but it's so impactful. So you know how to create that experience. You know how to create the music to create that like evoke emotion in individuals and create a long-lasting effect. The gym, the breath work, right? All of this is interwoven to for you to be exactly where you are today. And now with you writing a book and bringing this awareness to the world, I mean, this is just like it's mind blowing. Am I the only
Yeah.
one that sees that? Like all these are
For
connected.
sure. Yeah. Well, my past has definitely brought me to where I am today. And I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go through all the different stages of my life, being
Hmm.
a nightclub owner, being a restaurant owner.
Yeah.
Because that does require, that is a skill set where I'm very hospitable, and I do have
Hmm.
to know the energy. Like I
Yep.
really need to know the energy, but in a different way. So I built this deep empathy, even from that line of work, and brought it into this work where I
Hmm.
do really genuinely love to take care of people.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, so I'm really grateful that I went through those experiences, even
Hmm.
the challenges as well, because it's helped me to really embody the wisdom now, and really fully say that I lived through a lot of the challenges, and
Hmm.
just by doing so, I become a beacon of light for others who think it might not be possible to navigate some of the heavier, challenging emotions.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm really grateful that I've gone through that, because it's really developed what I'm in now for sure. It was like the bedrock for sure.
Yeah. So I'm just like I said, I'm super grateful that I was able to experience your teachings and your format. And with this episode, the goal is to bring this awareness to others so that they can see what's possible for them, for their transformation, for their creativity, just unlocking their next steps in their lives. Like it is beyond, like it's mind blowing.
Mhm.
So once again, thank you, and I look forward to seeing your journey unfold in the days, weeks, years to come.
Mm. Thank you, Tanya.